Okay, so I put this first slide up. Mind you, I spent a lot of time on this over the past couple of days. I'm excited. The reason I put this slide up is actually a song that Jay-Z made on the Black Album, one of his albums he made back in like 2004. But one of the interesting things of this is actually this quote at the beginning of the song by this guy. This is Biggie Smalls, for those of you that don't know. You know what? I just want to make sure. Am I the only black dude at this conference? I think I am. No, I'm not. Oh, no, there's one. What's up, dude? Black people! No, so they'll ignore that in a second. Let me make sure this is frozen. Sorry. There we go. There he is. That's Biggie Smalls. And this is what he says in the beginning of the song. That the key to success, at least for him, was to treat everything like it was his first project. So, 2 years ago I gave a TEDx talk right before I started my school that I'll tell you about shortly. But I wanted to just kind of preface this with, this will be one of the last talks I'll give for a while, because I have some plans to really hunker down with my school and focus on the student experience. So it's weird, like 2 years ago I remember how nervous I was, I remember how crazy it was to be doing this talk right before this school started, and I'll tell you right now, I'm actually nervous again. It feels good, because, you know, it feels like it's the first time again, and I'll tell you why. But I'm from the south side of Chicago. I don't know if you guys heard a couple days ago, there was a terrible shooting in a basketball court in the neighborhood. 13 people died, including a 3-year-old kid got shot in the head. It was terrible. And, you know, it's really tough, you know, being, like, growing up in that kind of environment and just being exposed to all those things. And there's lyrics like this you hear about and read about, even though Kanye is kind of a douche. He's speaking some truth right here. And I think about growing up and everything I've seen and been through, and I'm going to tell you guys mostly the bright side, but I wanted to start this off just to give some context for what I was able to observe as I was growing up. And I remember playing with my cousins outside. You know, I'm just a little kid, less than 10 years old, and I remember seeing a group of people just get shot and killed right in front of me. I've had, you know, family members in prison, people just selling drugs, like just not doing good things, and you're just around this growing up, you know? So that's just my context. I just want you guys to understand that she was a little rough. But I'm not going to talk about that the whole time. I just want to get that out of the way. So I went to kindergarten at this school. It's in Hyde Park, which is like the one good, safe-ish, diverse neighborhood on the south side. And when I went there, I actually had a hard time reading. I wasn't the best like kid early on. I couldn't read simple words and things. It was a challenge. So my mom, I don't know how we got a Nintendo. I got lucky. I got a Nintendo. I got to play Nintendo, and I got to play this game called Zelda. And that game was awesome. I loved it. I fell in love with it. And it was so crazy because when I was playing the game, my mom was watching me play this game, and she realized that I was actually clicking through the text faster than she could read it. So I was actually learning how to read because I was incentivized to understand what was going on in this game, which was amazing. So my mom got me more role-playing games, more RPGs that I played, and that was basically how I learned to read outside of school. It was crazy. Just to jump back to life real quick though, growing up money was tight. We didn't have a lot growing up, and so we ate a lot of these. Anybody out here had any fried bologna sandwiches? There we go. Everybody knows about fried bologna sandwiches. All right, well, some of you may not know about this. These are what I like to call peanut butter and jelly quesadillas. Okay? So I'll tell you about this because most people just assume I'm black, which, you know, I grew up black. Culturally, that's what I identify with. But my mom is actually Honduran. So I had this weird culture clash growing up with weird things like these concoctions, because we didn't have bread, but we had tortillas, and then we had peanut butter and jelly, so that's how this happened. But even more than that, does anybody know what this is? Lumpia. Anybody know lumpia? It's Filipino. My mom's actually Honduran half, and then the other half is Filipino. I won't get too much into my cultural background, but a lot of people can't tell that I'm actually a mutt. Got all this stuff in me, even though I just look like a black dude. And the other random thing, which doesn't influence my food choices, but my great-grandfather was actually Italian on my dad's side. So like I'm just all messed up and mixed up, but whatever. So also on the south side of Chicago, you guys know it's cold. And sometimes the snowplow truck they don't hit the sidewalks, they just hit the streets. So if you had to hit the streets, then you couldn't really walk in the sidewalk, and we didn't have a car, so I had to walk to school. I remember one time I got an injury, so I was on crutches. I remember having to take my crutches to school, going down the street. Okay, so it's just, I don't know, life is tough growing up. So my whole point with that is just to say, something got me through it, and it was my video games. So that's how I kind of stayed in. A lot of people say go outside. Well, I didn't want to go outside because I didn't want to get shot. So I stayed in, and I played lots of video games, and I'll show you a few of them. So one is this one. Who knows this? Woo! Mario Paint, except you only played the music part. You didn't actually paint anything. I love that game. Then there was also, I got into Mortal Kombat, and NBA Jam, of course, with Mortal Kombat characters. The best one was Hillary Clinton. She was the best player in the game. That was awesome. But anyway, it was funny though, because growing up where I grew up, this is what we played. We played Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam, okay? But mind you, I played Zelda before. I promise this is all going somewhere back to programming eventually. But I felt isolated. So in the culture I had, it was NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat, not Legend of Zelda or games like, say, Final Fantasy VII. How many of you guys played Final Fantasy VII? All right. Oh, yes, yes! Inside jokes, here they come. So, when I was playing games like these, like there's an interesting metaphor that kind of comes with this. So this is the very beginning of the game. It was amazing when this came out, by the way. It just totally blew everyone's socks off. But you were in this place called Midgar. That's this city that you were in. And Midgar was this epic city with all these different sectors. And this is actually like a transit map of Midgar. And you were to go around in different sectors and do all these missions and things. And it was this huge game. It came with 3 discs, so I was like so excited about what it was going to be like. But the most like mind-blowing thing about Final Fantasy VII, what it did to me in my own little world cooped up in an apartment on the south side of Chicago, was that eventually you get out of Midgar. And you go into this is the world map for Final Fantasy VII. And that's Midgar. So Midgar is just this little tiny blip on this big map. So you go through all this stuff all on the first disc, and then you get into this world, and there's just all these amazing things you get to explore and places you get to go. So this will be relevant later. Moving on, I also liked computers. I got into computers because of all my gaming, and I love music. Obviously, I keep quoting rappers. I've got one quote from a rapper left, I promise. But then I use this piece of software. Anybody know what this is? This is going to be a tough one. Does anybody know what this is? Nope, not Fruit Loops. Nope, nobody knows? Okay. Hip Hop EJ. This was my jam. I had so much fun. I was making like beats and stuff and putting them on CDs and like playing them to myself. They sound like crap now, but anyway, it was good back then. And back then it was the future of music. I don't think anybody's heard of the software, so I guess it didn't work out. But anyway, that was my foray into music. But then I learned how to make money with computer software and music, and guess how I did that? You guys know this? So there was Napster, and then there's the equation plus Nero, Burning ROM, and then I made money. I sold so many CDs out of my locker, it's not even funny. So many bootleg CDs and mixtapes. I was just like this weird little kid that would just have this locker like selling CDs. It was not the right thing to do at the time, but hey, you can't arrest me now, I got away with it. Alright, so moving on. I needed to make money. I told you we had trouble growing up, so I had to find my own ways to make money. The other thing I did was I sold trees. Now I know what you're thinking. Black people from Southside Chicago sold trees. Not those kind of trees. I sold Christmas trees. Because black people celebrate Christmas too. Okay? So I sold Christmas trees. I was really good at selling Christmas trees. I could sell you a Christmas tree right now. I was so good at it. It was insane. And then, so that was the winter, but you couldn't sell Christmas trees all year round, so actually I was a tree removal person in the summer. And that actually, when I was just a young teenager, I was getting paid like 20 bucks an hour, which was like big bucks, man. It was crazy. I got a sound system and everything. It was good money. And I guess this is my selling experience. So this is my final rapper quote from Jay-Z. Ice in the winter, fire and hail, I'm a hustler, I can sell water to a well. It's kind of a crude lyric, but anyway, that's how I felt at the time. And then moving on, I played sports. I got into sports in high school. And I ran track and field. I got really good at that, broke some records, got good enough to go to the Junior Olympics, competed nationally, it was awesome. But when this happened, I lost my connection to all those fun things I used to do. So that software I used to use, that music I used to make, those computers I used to build and work with and install new CD burners and all that kind of stuff, I got more into sports, and my dream became to go to the NFL. I was also a football player. I went to one of the best football high schools in the state. Won the most state championships. It was great. I was this awesome athlete. I still got by with school, but it was really just about sports. Then something really, really bad happened. I got a back injury. So I had a really massive back spasm. I was in the hospital for like a week. Couldn't walk. It was so bad. And I was like, okay, I'm almost out of school. I was like a junior or senior at the time. So I'm like, okay, now what do I do? I thought I was going to go to the NFL. I forgot all about that, tech stuff I used to do. I don't know what to do. Thankfully, though, I did well enough in school to get into Northwestern University. So I got to go to Northwestern, which is a really good school just north of Chicago. And by the time I got there, you all know my history, my background, and what I knew about. So basically, getting into college was like this huge success. I was the first person in my family to get into college and then eventually complete it. And this is what I thought I needed to make. So when I got to college, I said, what do I need to study in order to make money? Because I need to provide for my family. I got into this good school. I got to pay off all these loans. There's all this stuff I need to do now. So apparently, the best way I discovered to make money was business. So that's what I thought I needed to study. And they didn't have business at Northwestern. They had economics. So that's what I studied initially. And I wanted to be an investment banker or consultant. But it turns out in my pursuit of those professions, I fell into a startup. I actually helped start this company. It's called Context Media. I'm no longer there. I was only there for the first year. But it was with a couple of the guys at Northwestern. The company has made millions of dollars at this point. They've done really well. And this was my first kind of foray into entrepreneurship. So I learned what it took to start a company. We raised $250,000. I was 18 years old, a freshman in college. I had no idea what I was doing. But we learned so much. We hired people, we fired people, and we scaled. I sold. It was just this awesome startup experience. But I left. I left for a number of reasons, but one was that the two guys that had started the company, one graduated, the other one dropped out of college because he was going to run the business. And I was only a freshman, so I was like, I think I should stay in school, because this isn't necessarily my passion project. It was a company that put LCD screens in doctors' offices to educate patients while they wait. That's what Context Media did, which was good work. But anyway, I met this guy, sophomore year at Northwestern, and his name is Troy Hinikoff. He's the managing director of Techstars in Chicago. He was not then, this was like 8 years ago, but what he was then was an entrepreneurship professor at Northwestern. I took his class, and it just totally unlocked my mind as to what was possible with entrepreneurs and starting new companies and businesses. So, that being said, I decided I was going to solve my own black folks problem and get cheaper haircuts on the south side of Chicago. So I started a barber shop. Don't ask me how I did it. I just wrote a business plan, asked a bunch of barbers. Barber number 26 or so helped me get it started, and they cut the hair, and I ran the shop, and opened up another one, and I had this crazy experience running a barber shop for a while. But I ended up leaving that too, because I realized that my passion wasn't necessarily in cutting hair. I thought it was, but it wasn't. And also, the person I partnered with wanted to flip the business. He wanted to make it grow really fast and make lots of money, and that wasn't interesting to me. What was interesting to me was to be the best barbershop, not the most ubiquitous barbershop. All right, and then finally, I got lucky. So I had those two companies under my belt, that's weird to say because they weren't really that developed. But anyway, I learned enough to get to a point where I could actually get a job in venture capital. So it's weird because most people told me that interns at venture capital firms already had MBAs and lots of previous banking, finance, consulting, business experience, or whatever. I didn't have any of those things, but I worked my way in. And this is how it felt. So I met a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is basically what they were doing. It just felt like they were looking for money because they needed to hire people like you all because they weren't, and then that's how they would be successful. And it was just this weird thing I observed. But I learned a lot about investing, due diligence, and what it took to actually build a startup and make it successful. But then it was, still going through school, and I realized that, oh crap, I actually have to pay off my loans at some point. Lucky enough, due to my making very little money growing up, I qualified for lots of financial aid scholarships and work study. So my work study was, I was a campus security monitor, I worked the library security desk some nights, and then I was also a safe ride driver, which is basically like a campus taxi. Anyway, that's how I made money. And then I also got elected student body president at Northwestern. And that's a weird one just to kind of throw in, but basically, after all the experience working in venture capital, starting 2 companies, meeting all these great people, I decided that I wanted to give back and help the university get better before I left. So, and that's also where I met my eventual co-founder for the school, which I'm going to tell you about right now. So, does anybody know who this guy is? All right, I know you know who he is. All right, so this is Harper Reed. Harper Reed he was the CTO of Threadless. I will tell you more about him in a few minutes. He and I have lots of strong ties for the rest of this journey I'm going to share with you. But first and foremost, he introduced me to another company when I graduated called Sandbox Industries. This is yet another venture capital firm, except my job at this firm wasn't to do the investing and due diligence. My job here was actually to come up with ideas. They had an in-house incubator where they hired entrepreneurs and residents to build products. The only difference, though, was that the products they wanted me to try to build were primarily web apps and mobile apps and things leveraging technology. Mind you, that I did not understand. So what I ended up doing was hiring lots of you guys and spending lots of money, not understanding what you were doing, and then, most of them didn't work out. So when I went through this experience at Sandbox, I got kind of frustrated, but at the same time I got kind of optimistic. Because I realized that I had all these ideas in my head for what technology could do, for what software could do, and it was invigorating to me to think about it. But at the same time, I realized that I didn't have the chops to actually execute on any of those ideas. So this got me to a very existential moment where I started to reflect on who I am and why am I here and what's my purpose in life and who do I want to be and all these kinds of things, all at the old age of 22 years old. And it was interesting because what I realized though was that I was ready to make a choice of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be in life. I wanted to help people. That was all of my experience so far, particularly in college. The most happiness and the most satisfaction I gained in my life was when I was helping someone else and improving their life and doing that. So that's my, that is still to date my stated commitment to my existence. But while I'm having this existential crisis, Harper calls me up again. And I explained my frustration to him with everything, but also what I wanted to do in life. So he said, hey Neal, I think you should learn how to code. I think you should just go for it, try to learn how to code. I don't even know what he knew he was doing, but he started this whole crazy thing. Because what happened is, with knowing nothing, no experience, mind you, I was an econ guy, and I studied psychology and organizational theory and stuff like that, but I had no exposure to technology whatsoever. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I decided I wanted to get involved. When I got there, when I got to that state of going, I'm going to do this, it kind of felt like I was posed with this question. Like Morpheus was like, what are you going to do, bro? And I, wanted to make a choice to go in and try to understand this matrix, and I had this amazing dream that it would be like this. You can jack in and then, kung fu. I'm going to know how to code, I'm going to be straight. But actually, it was kind of like the joke was on me. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with this meme, but it is not that simple. And for 3 months, I thought it would be, and no, it was not. That didn't happen. So I realized that I had to learn the hard way. I had to actually, go through all this time and effort, and I realized that you all have been, learning this stuff for many years, probably even since you were kids. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have that exposure or opportunity. I didn't even know that I could understand this stuff. I was only a consumer of it growing up. But regardless, I started here. I started with Learn Python the Hard Way. That was the very first book I read. I know some people like it, and there's lots of Learn Code the Hard Way things, and you guys think it's a great resource. believe it or not, it was actually pretty intimidating to me, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it, it turned me off. I didn't know whether this was right for me. But I did read another book, and I know you all are probably familiar with this. So this is Wise Poignant Guide to Ruby. This is the second book I read. After I got frustrated with Python, I looked into other languages, I learned about Ruby. And the funny thing with this is, I didn't learn a lot of Ruby when I read this book. It was this ridiculous, weird book, and I got through the exercises, but it was just like cartoon foxes, chunky bacon, and weird stories, and like, you know, whatever. And it was just the fact I learned about Why the Lucky Steph. And I know he's not really around anymore, but he was a very inspirational figure to me. Because I realized that there were people out there in your community, I say your, it's ours now, because I'm a part of it, but I realized that there were people out there that actually cared about helping people like me, and helping beginners, and helping kids, and bringing people in, you know, in a way that wasn't as exclusive. You know, not like a hazing thing, it was more just like a welcoming, everyone should know how to do this thing. And that was really exciting to me. And then I learned even more about the Ruby community and the language. And how many of you all know what this stands for? Some of you? Not all of you? All of you will know how, obviously you're going to know if I'm going to tell you, but you should know. MinSwan. I learned about MinSwan. This is like three or so years ago. So MinSwan stands for, Matt's is nice, so we are nice. So this is a saying in some of the forums and things in Ruby with all the trolls and people arguing about different things and the dogmatic arguments and whatnot. And Rubyists, at least from my perception in the community, were very kind to each other and to others that did not necessarily agree with them. And that was something that really just, I just felt really empowered. I felt like I could be a part of this. I can continue learning. So I really dug in. I read Learn to Program, which is a great intro to programming book. I would recommend that for anyone trying to start off. I also read Agile Web Development with Rails. That kind of knocked me on my ass, I'm not going to lie, because I wasn't really ready for it. But I learned about Rails. And a better book for me, after learning to program though, instead of Agile, was this book. So there's the Hardware tutorial, which I'm sure a lot of you all are familiar with. This is another great resource. I fought tooth and nail to get through it. It was so hard. It took me 2 months to get through this tutorial when they first had it. It was like Rails 2. It was like the beta version. He hadn't really released it fully. He was giving it out for free at the time. But I got through it. And then when I got through that, I said, all right, what else is out there? You guys remember Think Vitamin? So Think Vitamin, this is now Treehouse, Brian Carson's project, but it was Think Vitamin back then. I went through every tutorial that I could find on Ruby, on Think Vitamin, and everything else I could read and understand. But I realized that all of this self-learning, this hacking my own education to kind of put things together, post-college, mind you, I quit my job from this venture capital firm just to focus on learning how to code. I did this for a full year. I kind of felt like this guy a lot of the time. So I don't know if you guys seen this comic, but read through it. More laughs? Okay, good. All right. So this is basically how I felt all the time, because I was Googling the dumbest things, because I knew nothing. Okay, you guys know how to Google smart. I was Googling dumb. So when I Googled dumb, there was only like 1 or 2 other dumb Googlers out there. So those, like this was me on a daily basis. Anyway, I kept expressing my frustration to these people I knew, and this dude hit me up again. Harper, said, hey, I want you to meet somebody I know well. Meet Rabble. Anybody here know Rabble? Who knows Rabble? All right, a few people know Rabble. If you don't know Rabble, this is Rabble. He was the first developer, first employee at Odeo. You guys don't know Odeo? Odeo is the place that basically incubated Twitter. So Rabble was the first guy, the Rails guy. He was one of the first people on Rails as well. And he helped prototype the first Twitter app when it got started. Anyway, Harper knew Rabble because Rabble had left Twitter after it launched. And then he started a software development shop in Uruguay. And so when he went to Uruguay, Harper introduced me to him. He had a layover in O'Hare when he was traveling to the States for some business. And he had a 3-hour layover. And I got to meet with Rabble for those 2.5 hours or so. And I had this wonderful conversation with him about what I had done, my journey of teaching myself how to code, how I wanted to keep doing it and solve meaningful problems with software, but I just needed to get my chops up and build things and understand programming better. And he gave me an offer to actually work for his company, Qbox, in Uruguay. And it was amazing. His offer was, you come out here, we need help on the business side. You've got business experience, so helping lead the project teams and project management and that kind of stuff. And in exchange, we'll teach you how to code. We'll have you work on real projects with us, and you can pair up with our developers. And that was an amazing opportunity. So I bought a plane ticket immediately with the little money I had, because after a year of basically teaching myself how to code with no job, I was running out of money. Another person, I told you about him already, Troy, I talked to him a lot about what was going on in Chicago. And at the time, this is about 3 years ago, Chicago had a lot of activity on the scene, and he recommended that I consider sticking around despite this amazing opportunity. And when I was ruminating over these things, I didn't make a decision yet, but I did end up meeting some other people that I know you all know. I met Corey Haynes. Corey Haynes is another Chicago dude. Great guy, helped me out in the very early stages, gave me the confidence that I could keep moving and try to figure everything out. With programming and, with this idea, I soon had to run a school. So I met Corey, then I met David Chalimsky. You guys know him, RSpec. So David Chalimsky's another great guy in Chicago. I remember, we went out for drinks or something after some event, and I remember talking with Dave Chalimsky outside of his house until 4 o'clock in the morning. It was insane. And we were just talking about life, about programming, about software. I just didn't realize how real these people were, these magicians that I observed, these programmers, and how cool they were, and how interesting they were. So it was just cool to get to know them. Then I met this guy, Uncle Bob. And Uncle Bob was another, friendly guy. I got a meeting with him and the 8th Flight guys in Chicago, thanks to Corey. And I remember Uncle Bob, as nice as he is, he said, I see a lot of passion, not a lot of execution. That's what he told me, when I was thinking about, trying to figure out this school thing. And on one side, he was kind of giving me a challenge. On the other side, I was a little frustrated, can I actually do this? Am I welcome here? But then this guy pulled me aside after that meeting and said, hey, this is Dave Hoover, by the way, who was at Tiva at the time. He said, you can do this. And I wrote this book for you. He didn't write it for me, but he wrote this book called Apprenticeship Patterns that was for people like me trying to get in. And then I met this guy. We know this guy, he's back there. Jeff Casimir. So I met Jeff because I attended a Ruby workshop at 37 Signals called Ruby in 100 Minutes that Jeff's company and Jeff, Jumpstart Lab, was running. And I learned about this workshop. It was weird. I remember him emailing me right after I signed up, and he was like, how did you hear about this workshop? And I probably had this awkward answer because I was doing this weird thing where every day I would use Google search tools and do past 24 hours and Google Ruby on Rails. So I know that's weird, but I just wanted to know everything that was going on, so I was abreast of the happenings, and Jeff's workshop popped up. It was a charity event, cost $100, something like that. Anyway, when I saw Jeff's workshop and I saw Jeff teach Intro to Ruby, I realized something really, really, really valuable. This was a very pivotal moment for me, because in-person instruction from someone like Jeff changed the way of thinking that I had about how I could learn. Because I realized that being in that room with him and having other people in the room with me trying to learn was much more effective and valuable than the past year I had spent on my own behind a computer trying to go through all these tutorials and hack through. So I realized that there had to be a better way. At the time, there was no place I could go to learn. Jeff was doing lots of work, flying all over, working with companies and doing one-off workshops, but he didn't really have anything that I could sign up for at the time. And I got frustrated by that, so much so that me and my friend that I was learning with, Mike, decided that we were going to take matters into our own hands and start a school. That school became Code Academy. That was the school. I know what you're thinking. It's not that one. It's not. Look closely. Most people don't realize this. Code Academy. So even the little girl that presented before, she wrote Code Academy. She meant Code Academy. Alright, so this is what happened. I'll be really quick, but we launched, let's say, 4 months before our start date for the school. This was 3 years ago. So over the summer, we launched in April of 2011, and by October or August-ish was when we were going to get started with our applications and the full website. And then these guys came out of Y Combinator Summer Batch. And it was such a troll move to just remove a letter. It kind of sucked. Really bad for our branding and things. But anyway, we got over it. They got really popular. We actually got really popular too. But anyway, before I get into that, I want to say one more thing about this guy. Speaking of trolls. So he calls me up one more time, and you'll notice something interesting about his hands and maybe even some paraphernalia in the back. But Harper Reed, former CTO of Threadless, tech hobo for a year, and then calls me up and says, dude, guess what? President Obama has asked me to be the chief technology officer for his re-election campaign. Isn't that cool? And if you notice, I say troll Harper. You see that? You see that? So this right here. So Harper calls me up. Not only does he tell me that, but he says, you know what, Neal? He wants me to work for him. He wants me to help lead one of the product teams in the software division. Just because he knows me, he knows my hustle, my work ethic, that kind of thing, and knew I could manage a team well. I was a good leader, even though I didn't understand software completely well because I'd only been teaching myself for a year. I guess you all know what my answer was to that, but turns out he wasn't very happy because I said no. I said no because I had this other dream. I had this other opportunity that I wanted to take on, which was to actually start a school to help myself and a bunch of other people I was betting were out there that wanted to learn how to code. So I decided to start Code Academy instead. So we launched the website, but right around when we launched the website, my co-founder, Mike McGee, has a conversation. We were living in the same apartment, and he goes, hey man, I'm broke. I'm broke. This is like July, I remember. And he's like, no, I'm really broke. I have no money, $0. And I only had a couple grand left in my bank account. And what was amazing about me and Mike's dynamic is that we both grew up kind of with low means, so we knew how to get by with nothing, or next to nothing. We didn't have a lot. And we didn't know what to do. We were running out of money, so my burn rate doubled, because I was paying for Mike and for me, for everything. We were just working out of our apartment trying to make this school happen. And something magical happened. Once, right before we ran out of all of our resources and we hit rock bottom, right before this happened, people applied to Code Academy from all over the world. I couldn't believe it. We got applications from all across the globe. And I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, who are these people? Why are they trying to come here? Why do they even think that I can do this? It was amazing. But it turns out it worked. And people signed up. And we had our first classes right here in this weird company called Groupon that you guys know. But I subleased 10 cubicles from Groupon for the first class. I didn't know what I was doing. I found a guy named Jeff Cohen, similar to JC, Jeff Casimir, but another Jeff in Chicago. His name's Jeff Cohen. And he was this software developer for 20 years, had been on Rails early on, amazing teacher, even though he wasn't formally teaching. He'd been rejected from the schools, even though he wanted to teach, because he had no degree. He had no formal education in computer science, and because of that, school said, sorry, this isn't for you. I found Jeff, Jeff taught for us, and Jeff taught awesome. We redesigned our website, we improved, we grew, we added classes, and all of a sudden we were continuously growing and attracting people from all over the world. This is 2 years ago, excuse me. 2 years ago. And then, obviously we weren't going to be in Groupon's cubicles the whole time, so we upgraded. So we moved into this place called 1871. We were actually the first tenants. Now, what is 1871, you might ask? Some of you history buffs may know that it was the year of the Great Chicago Fire. But 1871 also became the label for this new movement that had started in Chicago for the technology scene, for entrepreneurs and technologists to come together and build great companies. It kind of represented this, Phoenix-like, revolution that was occurring in Chicago. We were like, you know what? We're going to be awesome. We're going to build businesses, and we're going to be great at it, and we're going to support each other. So this place, actually on this map, 1871, the physical space, is there. It's still the same map from the Chicago fire. It's Kinsey Street. And I'll show you a few clips or photos from our school. So this is our school in 1871. So it's awesome. It's great. I hired a graffiti artist to tag the walls, and this is some of the event space that we use for some of our presentations when our students graduate. And this is our other classroom. If you notice in the back, there's some nice graffiti, Ruby stuff in the back there. It's pretty cool. So yeah, 1871's been great. And we've met a lot of people, including this guy. I don't know if you know who that is. That's Rahm Emanuel. He's the mayor of Chicago, former chief of staff for Obama. And we ended up partnering with him too. So he came into the class one day, sat in, and said, I see all these people from Hong Kong, from Australia, from Europe, from Africa. They're all coming here to Chicago to learn how to code and build software. Why aren't you teaching more Chicagoans? So we ended up talking for a while, and we had numerous meetings where we talked about ways that we could work together, because what we had learned how to do so well was something that should be shared with more people. So we worked out a partnership to actually teach Chicago public school teachers and city college teachers in Chicago some of our curriculum, some of our methodologies. And that partnership is ongoing. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but it's been going well so far. Continuing from that, I've also had the joy of doing lots of volunteering and involvement. So this is back in DC, back in December of 2011. Jeff, you remember this?
I can't believe that haircut.
Yeah, look at that haircut. Look at him, he looks great. But I got to meet Steve, and I got to get to know Jeff better. He let me stay in his extra bedroom and all that. That was fun. And I just fell in love with all the work that I was doing, and I couldn't believe that I'd been involved in this for so long. And then you guys know this logo. This is 37 Signals. They're also in Chicago. A lot of people out here don't know that, but they are. And they're very much to themselves, and I learned a lot about them studying Rails and getting into that whole thing. Rework really inspired me when I was trying to be an entrepreneur before I even knew about tech. But I actually got to know Jason Free pretty well, because Jason, believe it or not, was a student in that class, that Ruby class that Jeff was teaching. And I met Jason Fried the first time in that classroom when he did that Ruby in 100 Minutes talk. And I realized that Jason Fried himself actually doesn't know how to program. He can do some HTML, but he doesn't know Ruby. So that was interesting to me. I was like, dude, I can help teach you how to code too. But Jason and I really got to talking, and obviously some of their values are really based on education. And it's something that they find really important. Though they're a product company, and they have all these great things to share, but yet they don't necessarily have the resources to go all in and take responsibility for educating people all the way up to the point to align with a lot of the things they say about how to start a business. So they decided to partner with us, and that's right around the time we rebranded. This is about a year ago. 37 Signals, we actually became the Starter League, our new name, became the first ever investment that 37 Signals has made in another company. So that was really exciting, and it's been amazing. And I've learned a lot from them. We've grown. This is our homepage for our website. We teach a lot of things now. We teach HTML, CSS, JavaScript, user experience design, visual design. We've come a long way. We've learned a ton. And we've taught a lot of people. So in just 2 years' time, it's about 2 years right now, is when our program started. Okay. And since then, we've taught 723 people how to build software. So I'm really proud of that. I'm excited about the future, but that's just a really crazy number to think about, given that my goal was just to teach myself and Mike, and then 12 people, and then 35, and then 56, and then it just took off. But what's amazing, though, is that there's a whole new world of resources available now, different than back then when I was trying to learn, over 3 years ago. And it's funny because, at least with the coding school side, Jeff remembers, he was a close advisor to me when we were getting started. We were almost the first of our kind. There weren't a lot of programs like that. There was nothing I could really compare ourselves to. And now, you could throw a rock and hit a coding school, it almost feels like. It's pretty crazy how many it popped up. But I'm also excited about all the resources. So there's Treehouse on the left, Code Academy on the right. If you want to know about trademark law and all that other stuff, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. But anyway, so there's Treehouse and Code Academy. And then there's all these other things. So there's Udacity, there's edX, there's 1 Month Rails, there's Learn Street. These are all online. Then there's App Academy and Flatiron School and Maker Square and Dev Bootcamp. And there's this other, much longer list of things. There's G School, just saying right now. But what's interesting about this whole movement is I think that the innovations that are occurring in software education are actually influencing education overall. So the work that we're doing, that you all are doing to help beginners and new people come into this field, it's really, really inspiring educators to think differently about how these things happen. Mind you, we are not accredited, right? A lot of these programs and schools that are popping up, there's this crazy movement of education in this space, and I really think it's going to have a much larger impact on history once we observe and we look back. So be excited. The field that you guys are in is the hottest one. But there's some interesting comparisons, so benefits. So teaching online, There's a lot of benefits. It's accessible, it's affordable, it scales well, gets to a lot of people no matter where you are, as long as you have a computer and internet connection. But there's also lots of benefits to teaching in person. So it's more effective in my opinion. Obviously I've learned that. It's really dynamic. You can't really pause a video, raise your hand, and then ask the video person a question, but you can in person. It's really helpful to just know who the learner is from the teacher side and the student's able to interact with somebody and get inspired by them. But it's also immersive. So in terms of accountability, I can't tell you, I don't know if anybody remember Code Year? Code Year, remember Code Year? So Code Academy started Code Year. And it was like, oh my God, how Code Year got like, 100,000+ people sign up and, everybody's gonna learn how to code. It's gonna be crazy. And then what happened? Stop hearing about Code Year because a lot of those people dropped off. And there's no knock on any of those resources, but what happens online is that there's this massive funnel. And the problem I have with my beef is the fact that so many people go online, think they're gonna learn how to code, they get charged up, they go through one of those resources, and they're like, oh man, that's really hard, it's not for me. And then they give up. They give up before they even understand that they can learn too, and it's not just that resource that they just read that represents the mountain they're going to have to climb in order to get there. And I think that inadvertently we're turning people away from this field because this is their only exposure to it. If it was my only exposure to it, I'd be intimidated too. I'd probably give up. So we need to find more ways to get it out to people. But at the same time, I think teaching in person has a lot of value compared to online because it's similar to this. I think there's a difference between reading a cookbook or studying and practicing and apprenticing to be a great chef. And while there are some, chosen outliers that are able to just completely teach themselves on their own for free online, I think most of us require a lot more support, resources, and attention. And there's also different focuses. You can teach someone that just wants to get to know so they know a lay of the land, and they're aware of software, but not necessarily become a builder or a maker or a programmer. But then there's also people out there that want to truly get there. And we need to make that distinction with our resources and how we educate people and how we set their expectations. So, wrapping up, getting close to the end of this talk. I've got a few minutes left, and if there's hopefully any questions. But the biggest thing that I'm focused on, I remember showing you my universe picture before, the why. Why am I here? What are we here to do? What's my purpose? And when Mike and I just set forth to learn software and how to build it and how to make it, we didn't do it because we were passionate about getting employment. We didn't do this because we were passionate about the fact that, average salaries for programmers are 90,000 plus and whatever. That didn't matter to me. That wasn't why I signed up for this. So on one side, it's amazing this whole movement that's happened. But on the other side, it's also kind of frustrating because I think there's a lot of people trying to sign up for this because they think it's glamorous. They see the pictures of the offices that they're so cool and clean, and they realize coders can work from anywhere, so they're going to have nice vacation time and a great lifestyle. But what people don't realize is that there's so much more to it than that. So, one of the things that Mike and I lied, there's one more hip-hop thing. This is from a Wu-Tang Clan song, but they're quoting a movie from 1976. But this is basically how Mike and I feel. So, we're not about money. I'm not here for the money. We charge what we need to charge in order to run the program successfully and effectively. Beyond that, we don't really care. And that's something I want to stay true to for the rest of my life, and most certainly with any project I take on. So, we have our 3-month programs at the Starter League. We've done really well. We've taught lots of people. I actually told Jeff Kassimer this in the back earlier. But what I realized is that, there's been some challenges with setting expectations. We've appealed to lots of different people. And our programs are very inclusive. We're very focused on being beginner-focused. And we welcome anyone and everyone that we can to go through our program so they can learn and get exposed. But the challenge is that there's been a huge spectrum of expectations for what those outcomes are. Some people want to build a product, some people want to start a business, some people want to get a job, some people are just curious. And unfortunately, some people think they can just pay money and then magically get a skill and then they have a job. That doesn't work like that, as you all know. But anyway, this is my new project. So in addition to the Starter League and running some of our classes still, we launched a new program. It's called Starter School. And Starter School, unlike the 3-month program, which could be nighttime or daytime, and you can kind of choose your own adventure and commitment, this is a full-time program that's 9 months long that's going to give you exposure to programming, design, product development, and entrepreneurship with the purpose of, by the end, you shipping software to people. Whether it succeeds or fails, we are not guaranteeing either way. But we are saying that by the end, this is the purpose of this program. So we're being very clear about the type of person we want to appeal to and who should sign up. I'm proud to say we launched this program, this website in June. It starts in a week and a half. I'm excited. We've got people that signed up, over 100 people have applied. It's been amazing. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I can't tell you whether it's going to work out or not. Like I said, I feel like this is my first song. Like this is the very beginning again, like 2 years ago. Because I launched this brand new project. We've got this new class coming in. We've got all these crazy people that are moving from all over the country, and even some international people from all over the world that are flying in yet again to Chicago for 9 months to learn from us and ship software. I'm so excited for that. But I want to leave you with this. There's like 3 main things that I like to talk about and share when I do my talks. And I shared the same slide at Windy City Rails last week. This is a shirt from Windy City Rails. This is my Windy City Rails shirt. I'll wear my Nickel City one at the next conference talk I do. But, mind you, this is actually going to be the last conference talk I do for a while. And that's why I wanted to put my ankles into the presentation. So it's like 115 slides. I apologize. A few more things. One is, I want to thank these people. So you guys know Harper now. You know the characters. This is Troy. And this is Jason Freed, for those of you that don't know what he looks like. But he's the founder of 37 Signals. And there's one more dude. Remember this guy? That guy. So real quick, I just need you all to do me this favor. Can you all give a round of applause for Jeff and for these guys? So these people and many others are the ones that have empowered me to be on this stage today. Me, you know, this weird like black dude that only played video games on the south side of Chicago that was mostly broke. Like, how is that even possible? And I think, and it's crazy because it's mostly middle-aged white dudes, and same audience, but that's okay, because here's the thing. These people did not make me feel like I was different. They did not make me feel like I did not belong, or I wasn't, I didn't deserve to be there. I had to earn my keep. They just wanted to help me. At no point did I feel like they were evaluating what I looked like, where I was from, what credentials I had. They did not make me feel like that. So my call to action to you guys is to emulate what they've been able to do to create my story. Help people out. And in the future, somebody else should be up here giving this talk and have a much more diverse slide here, because there's going to be mentors from all walks of life helping people to create more outcomes like this. That's what I need you all to do. All right. So, full disclosure, I'm not a great developer yet. I've learned a lot. I'm actually pretty good. I've helped I'm a TA for the class. I do some assisting. I'm really good at picking up error messages. Learned that on my own the hard way. But on top of that, I'm actually working on software too. I build a product for our class to manage our classrooms, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm learning from people that know way more than me. But I'll be the first to say, in humility, that I have a long road to go. And it's been a challenge balancing running the school, attracting students, changing the world, with satisfying my own needs and desires to continue coding all the time. So that's why, in part, this is my last talk, because I'm planning to really put my head in the sand and stay with those starter school students, work with them along the way, and keep practicing and keep coding. So, almost final slide. Let people in. Like I said, there aren't a lot of people who look like me here. There aren't a lot of women here. There aren't a lot of other people from a lot of different backgrounds here. I'm not telling you that you have to go out and drag some Hispanics into the room to a Ruby conference, but what I am saying though is that when somebody makes a mistake, or they have a certain approach, don't be a jerk. Be nice, be kind, be understanding, have empathy. Welcome people in. There's a lot of people that don't even understand what you all had to go through to get to where you are. I didn't. So, when we're trying to figure this out, we're trying to get involved, just really do your best to let us in and welcome people into this community. Because the kind of adversarial approach is not constructive for anyone. Next is teach the benefits. So if you're going to teach someone, if you're going to help someone out, whether it's your kid, a friend, you're going to work for a program like mine, whatever it is, make sure you're digging into the benefits of what they can actually do with it, not just the carrots. Not, this is how much money you can make. This is how nice the office is. This is how cool the lifestyle is. Emphasize the fact that they can help change the world with software and technology, and that there's so many examples and amazing things that can be done with this skill. Emphasize that. Make sure that they understand and are intrinsically motivated to learn because they believe in what they're doing, not just you. And then finally, if you're going to run a program like mine, make sure you put purpose before profit. That's one thing I've really had to make tough calls every step along the way, because I'll tell you, early on, I had lots of investor friends. I worked in venture capital, like I told you. They were telling me straight up, they said, Neal, this is going well. What you need to do is you need to, just hire the people that are just accept the students that are really great, that have the highest potential. You can tell when you interview and evaluate the people that have aptitude, that were former musicians or good at math or logic. You can tell those students. And they said, just pick those, teach them, and then place them in the jobs that collect placement fees. That's what they told me to do. And I respect that. I understand it's valuable, it's important, because lots of people need to hire developers, and you need to get people through the pipeline as fast as possible. And I know that there's lots of successful programs out there that do that. That was something I vehemently rejected. I also vehemently rejected scaling. I'm not interested in going beyond Chicago because I'm not interested in diluting the quality of what we do. So, with that being said, I just want you to understand that there's no one right way, per se. But my way is to make sure that I'm helping people like me. I wasn't looking for a job. I wasn't looking to get placed in a job. I was looking to build software to help people, to help me, and to change the world. That's what I want to teach you how to do. So, if you're going to do something like this, consider putting purpose over profit. And that's really all I have. So, thank you.